Welcome to this episode of the Brilliant Brand Show. In today's episode, I answer a question from one of our listeners, and his question was, how do I convince people it's time for us to rebrand? Welcome to the Brilliant Brands Show. I'm Justin Keller, former accidental marketer and creative director, turned church branding expert and entrepreneur. Each episode, I'm unpacking the strategies that I've used to help churches all across America make their story, their brand visuals, and their marketing so brilliantly clear that it's impossible to ignore them. And now, it's your turn. I hope you're ready to challenge the way you see things, rebel against complacency, comfort, and conformity, and find your untold brilliance. Now, let the show begin. Welcome to this episode of the Brilliant Brand Show. I'm Justin Keller, your host, and I just want to thank you first for joining us here today and for spending some time with me. It means a lot. And this is the show where I help you learn what it takes to get your brand messaging and your brand strategy so brilliantly clear that it's impossible for people to ignore. And so we're going to do that in this episode by answering a question that came in from a listener, William, out of, I believe it was out of Charlotte, North Carolina. And so, William, thank you for sending a question. I hope you got the book, Rebel Brands, and I hope you're diving into that and enjoying that. If you have a question, just go to brilliantbrands.com/Q, letter N and A. So brilliantbrands.com/Q&A. And if you submit a question, I'm going to send you a digital copy of my book, Rebel Brands, the 10 New Rules for Building a Brilliant Brand. So let's get into this show and let's listen to William's question from Charlotte, North Carolina. Here we go.
Hey, this is William McNeely from Charlotte, North Carolina. Quick question. Trying to get my church to rebrand. And the brand was created maybe, 3 or 4 years ago. And, obviously it's entrenched and the people who created it are tied to it. But it's dated. It doesn't speak to what we want to, or who we are. And we need to rebrand. We need to remessage. And it's difficult. How do you overcome those obstacles? How do you convince folks that it's time for a rebrand? It's time for your church to move forward. So that's my question. Again, thanks for taking my call and I look forward to hearing it. Thanks.
All right, William, thank you for the question. Look, there's the first thing that I took from that question that was, I think, really important for us to focus on. And you said that the initial brand identity that you're referencing was created 3 to 4 years ago. And the people who were part of that process, or maybe they created it, I don't know if they're on staff or not, but the people part of that process still have a sentiment and attachment toward that. And I think that's a big critical component to your question. And here's why. So art, design, the visual part of your brand is very subjective. So you're not going to win on things that can be subjective. So which leads me to an idea and a thought for you. So I don't see you winning if you just go and tell them our logo is outdated, because the people that made that 3 to 4 years ago, they may perceive that as already current. they might think it looks great. So it's too subjective. You're going to lose that one. And then you're just going to be fighting a battle that's not worth fighting with them. And so I don't know who's holding what positions on staff there and who's in control of what, but I'm going to assume that maybe you don't get to make the final decision. And even if you do, as a great creative leader, I don't think it's smart and wise to just force your way into a rebrand by saying what we have sucks. I've never won a client by telling them what they're doing is wrong. And so I think that's an important takeaway from, if you're trying to convince and prove people that they should rebrand, I never, ever start with the logo's the problem. And that's a little different approach and a mentality, but you got to realize, I just was dealing with a church recently here and their logos are terrible, absolutely brutal. And they didn't realize it. The pastor even said to me, hey, well, what would look better? I guess I didn't realize ours was that bad. And so I think it's important to realize that, look, we might have good taste, you and I, but maybe our leaders and other people don't see the necessity or even see it as bad. And so we're trying to fix something that isn't broken. And so the visuals are a really tough spot to start in any rebrand. I like the fact that you talked about maybe that we need to work on a new message. And so here's a thought for you. I would take a different approach, maybe altogether than pretty much anybody would. And what I'm going to do in this situation is create a campaign. Okay. I'm going to work on the logos and the visuals just kind of being the icing on the cake, not the like steak and the meat of what I want to achieve. And so how I'm going to do this is I would look at the organization and say, how can I connect to the things that matter in this organization? What are the priorities? So for you, maybe let's pretend that the priorities are, reaching more people. And I think you talked about that your logo just doesn't represent who you are. So I would work on a campaign that is built on reaching, let's say, the unchurched or the de-churched, whatever the right term would be for you. But I would work on a campaign that's geared towards reaching more people. And then I would work on a part of that campaign that, let's say, is geared for kids to engage more parents. And that helps, kids. And I would also work on part of that campaign being built around, hey, we're going to market and message to raising and increasing our volunteerism. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to look at the whole organization and see how a rebrand and repositioning could benefit our impact and our reach. And so what I'm going to go to my leaders with is a engagement strategy, an engagement campaign. And then I'm going to say, hey, as we're about to put out, this marketing. So I'm going to show them, here's a game plan to reach more people in our city. Here's a game plan to be communicating this to volunteers. All of these things are great, but I've also taken and done an audit on our brand, our messaging and our visuals. Don't just make it about the visuals. You're not going to win there, remember? But talk about and say, I did an audit on what we're communicating and it's different. Every department, there's no consistency. And I also did an audit on even our identity, and there's a lot of different fonts used, a lot of different colors used. And I just think that, it's time for us to ask ourselves, are we really doing everything that we can to be the most effective possible? What's getting in the way? And I just think that if we're going to reach our city, it's a chance to reintroduce ourselves. We should look at the visuals and updating the brand visuals as well before we just put out all this marketing with a lot of inconsistencies. So here's the game plan. So the thing that I would say is, it's a tough answer, I guess. It means a lot of work on your part, and it's not as simple as proving that you need to rebrand. Just make the rebrand a part of a bigger objective, because I think that's even a better resource or better steward of your resources as a church as well. It's going to be hard for a leader to turn down somebody who's coming to them with a good strategy of engagement. Even those that are bought into the logo, they see you first approaching a strategy for engagement, not you first attacking a logo. And I think that could be a way to win. It may work, it may not. But that's kind of where I would start, is make the logo more of the icing on the cake and make the meat of what you want to achieve through a rebrand built on engagement, and really just increasing the effectiveness of your church. And so that's my thoughts for you. I hope it helped. And send me your questions, your comments, even based on this. Even would love to hear back from you on this if you agree or if it helps you. And you can do that even on social media using @KellerThinks, or shoot me an email directly to Justin at justinkeller.com. All right, well, that's it for this episode. Don't forget, if you have your questions about branding and marketing for your church, please send those to me. Again, brilliantbrands.com/Q&A. And if you're eager to start learning, some of the standards and the new standards for church messaging and marketing, and you want to start building a brand that is brilliant, just go to brilliantbrands.com. You can learn more about our one-day Brilliant Brand sessions, or you can just check out the free resources with the blog, get more content there. As always, you can even grab my book, Rebel Brands, 10 New Rules for Building a Brilliant Brand, right there at brilliantbrands.com/resources. So, hey, thank you for joining me today. I'll put up any notes on the website for you. And again, I would love to hear back from you, get your comments, your questions. Feel free to head over to iTunes and subscribe. And as always, it really means the world to me when you take a little bit of effort and go ahead and just rate the show. I don't care if it's low or high, just rate it. It really does help as we're trying to get this in front of more people, and you are a big part of that. So I want to thank you in advance for believing in this and really doing what it takes to help others, rebel against complacency, comfort, and conformity, and find their untold brilliance and make the greatest impact possible. So I'd love to stay connected. Let's stay in touch on social media. And until the next show, make today great.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. The Brilliant Brand Show is powered by Circle 50 Creative. You can learn more about how we help ministries solve critical ministry moments with the right message, brand visuals, and strategies at circle50.com.